Ahoy, you salty sailors. Time to raise anchor and set sail for your best scrawny life. Arr!
Alright, in this video we're going to create a cartoon character. Here's a doodle sheet that I made while I was trying to come up with ideas, just sort of brainstorming, trying to develop the character. And so we'll start out with our official drawing here. This is going to be the forward-facing version of our character's face. So we'll start with our usual circle. The lines will not be curved because the character is facing forward. We're going to drop that chin line down just a little ways, not too far. We're going to go for sort of the kawaii look. So we're just going to have a tiny little chin, and it will start in the middle of this quadrant here and drop a line down that curves and ends at that middle, at the center line, and then the same line on the other side ending in about the middle of that quadrant. Then we can drop down the sides of the face from the top of the circle, just sort of cutting off the edge right there. We're going to give her kind of fat cheeks, so it kind of balloons out right there where it meets the edge of the circle. And then we can erase these sides of the circle. Now, if we did the full tutorial on the Loomis method, you'd understand why we do that. The eyebrows are drawn at this center line, and of course we can change the character's expression. Down in the center is angry, up in the center is sort of sad. In this case, we're going to go with just regular. The distance between the eyes is about one eye. In other words, this distance here, and the distance between those are all the same. The shape of the eye goes up, then over, and then it swings down. Up, over, and swing down, trying to make them both the same shape and on the same level. Let's look at that again. Up, over, and swing down. Up, over, swing down. Now, if you're doing a close-up of the character's face, inside this eye shape you can draw a circle, which is the iris, and then within that iris a black pupil. And you can darken the iris sort of towards the top, more than the bottom, and you could add white highlights if you wanted to make the eye look wet. If you're doing a scene where the character is further away, then you simply need to make the pupil within that eye shape. The eye will be too small to draw all of the other detail. The top of this shape is, of course, the upper eyelashes, and they'll have the same expression the eyebrows have, down in the middle for angry, or up in the middle for sad. And if you bring them down, make them lower than normal, the eyelashes, you'll have sort of a sneaky look where the character might be sort of looking off to one side. Or if you make them higher than normal, you'll have a surprised or excited look. And in general, this upper eyelash line can be a little darker and stick out a little further than the rest of the eye. The nose goes on the center line, halfway between the eyes and the chin. And in this forward-facing pose, we're not going to draw every detail of the nose, just the shadow of the nose is all we'll create. The mouth is also centered halfway between the nose and the chin. Normally, the mouth is as wide as the distance between the two pupils. In other words, the left corner of your mouth is directly underneath your left pupil, and the right corner of your mouth is directly underneath your right pupil. But in this case, since we're leaning towards that kawaii style, which is sort of a baby face type of style, we're going to make the mouth a little bit smaller than that. For this character, the mouth will curve slightly upward in the center. The middle is slightly above the corners. Essentially what we're drawing here is the shadow of the upper lip. And for this style, within the distance between the two pupils, a little bulge at each corner and two little peaks in the middle. Now we can erase some of these reference lines, clean things up a bit. Then we'll look at that mouth shape again. So keep in mind that this is really the shadow of the upper lip. a little bulge at the corner, arcing slightly upward in the middle, another little bulge on the opposite corner, and two little peaks in the middle. Try that again. Little bulge at the corner, arcing upward, another little bulge at the other end, two little peaks in the middle. Shadow of the upper lip is what we're drawing. And then we can draw below that we'll draw a curve that curves downward in the middle, and that is the shadow of the lower lip. And of course the mouth will have the same expression the eyes have. You can draw the mouth open if the character is talking or excited. If you curve the corners of the mouth up, of course that's a smile, the character is happy. And of course if you curve the corners of the mouth downward even more than normal, that would be a frown, the character is sad or angry. Now the hairline is about the same distance above the eyebrows as the distance between the nose and chin. But since we're going with a little bit of a baby face style, we're going to make it slightly taller than that. Now you can give your character any hairstyle you want, but in this case let's just keep it real simple with a part right down the center, and we'll bring the shape over. It's kind of like a fish or a banana, maybe an eel. And we can draw these little curves. Now, if that's a little too complicated, you can always just make the hair black. You might find that easier to draw at first, but in either case, you're starting with the large general shapes first, and then the smaller details, the smaller shapes, echo the shape of the larger shape that they are associated with. So we can draw some shadows around the sides of the neck. And you can give your character bangs if you want. But in this case, I'd like to leave the eyebrows visible to better help the character have facial expressions. So we're going to not have bangs in this case, just a simple part down the middle. But maybe the wind is blowing. So we'll have some smaller shapes. They'll still echo the curve of the larger shape that they're associated with, but perhaps they're getting blown to the left a little bit. So that's our pencil sketch. So now let's ink this pose, and we'll add some white highlights in the eyes as well. For now we're just using a very simple line, and the shading is a shade of gray, which you could make with a gray brush tip marker, or you can cut your ink with water and use an actual brush. The hair, of course, will cast a shadow, and if we wanted to get really fancy, we could soften or lighten the very edge of the shadow a little bit. That simulates subsurface scattering. Then right next to that, we would darken it a little bit. That would be our core shadow. And then as we move away from the core shadow, toward the edge of the form, there's more ambient light bouncing in, so we can make the shadow a little lighter out there. And that applies to form shadows, not cast shadows. But that's probably a little too much for you right now. So for right now, let's just forget about the shading altogether. Let's just focus on getting the forms right as we begin another pose, but this time with the face turned at a 45-degree angle to the picture plane. So that vertical center line is curved because the face is turning away. The horizontal line is still straight. For this style, we're going to bring the nose and jaw out away from the face just a little bit. It's more like the muzzle of an animal. The human skull doesn't actually work that way, but we're doing this because of the style we're using. Now, because the face is turning away, the eyes and the distance between them are not all equal anymore. The closest eye to the viewer is the largest one. The distance between them is a little bit smaller, and then the furthest eye is a little bit smaller still. And we're going to make the shape the same, up, across, and swinging down, but the furthest eye will be compressed. It will be more narrow than the closer eye. So let's clean up some of these reference lines. And if you want to, you can draw the edge of the nose as a curve that comes down. But if you don't want to, you can simply, once again, draw just the shadow of the bottom of the nose. And again, because the face is turning away, the mouth is going to be compressed on the far side, or it's going to be squished in towards the center line on the side that's furthest away from the viewer. Even the pupils of the eyes are not truly round anymore. They're going to be more of a tall oval. Notice the jawline as well curves down from the lower left quadrant of the circle and stops at the center line, forming the chin. But on the far side, it's compressed quite a bit. And now we'll bring these hair shapes down, but that farther hair shape, now it's hiding behind the cheek. So it doesn't continue straight down like it did in the forward-facing pose. It ducks away behind the face for a little while and then comes out below the chin. We don't see this character's ears because the hair dropping down from the back of the head covers them up. Now let's draw a pose that's turned 90 degrees to the picture plane. So in this case, the vertical center line is the edge of the circle, but we'll still have a straight horizontal line, and coming down from that we'll make a little curve that is the edge of the nose. Like I mentioned before, this is more like the muzzle of an animal. The actual human skull doesn't work this way, but this is just the style we're using. Then from the center of the curve we'll swing down that jawline and meet the chin there. The mouth is quite small in this pose, and the eye, of course, again, we go up, across, and then swing down, but this time it's compressed quite a bit, and the pupils are, again, squished into tall ovals. Then we'll bring out that hair shape, kind of a banana shape or a fish shape again, and again, the far side, the hair on the far side appears below the chin. And the hair that drops down from the back of the head will go down on the other side of the shoulder. So there's our three poses. We don't have much time left to discuss drawing the body, but you can draw the torso as basically a rectangle. The legs are twice as long as the torso. If you sat down and drew your legs up close to yourself, your knees would be right about where your shoulders are, so your legs are twice as long as your torso. Your arms, the elbows, right where or at the same level as your stomach if they're hanging down, and with the hand open, it comes down to about mid-thigh. So I've taken our character and drawn a 3-panel comic, just real quick and dirty, nothing fancy here. And in this case, she is assisting a police detective to solve a criminal mystery. Now, I've only used black and white here. You can see, if you wanted to apply some color, that you would need to write out your words first, because they're easiest to read if there's white behind them, if they're just black and white. So write your words out first before you apply any color. So someone is trying to thwart the investigation by throwing a brick at the detective. So you can finish this story, or you can come up with a story of your own if you don't like the direction this one's taken. And I haven't come up with a name for the character, so you girls will have to come up with a name for her. But anyway, that's some of the fun and weird things you can do with developing a cartoon character and making your own cartoons. So that will give you girls plenty to practice on for quite a while, I think. So that will probably be our last art video until maybe next winter, but we'll see you then.